Welcome back. You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai. I recently got to interview the media reticent unicorn Druva, all the way from the United States of America. This is a technology startup which is looking into cloud, protecting enterprises' data during the era of work from home. How has business been? Well, here's the founder himself.
Yes, the state did go into lockdown much earlier than everybody else. There been some very interesting learnings all through the while in terms of how humankind is almost very resilient to things like these. I think obviously it's a much worse time for many of the industry, many of a lot of people involved in the business, but I think Druva so far has done well. This is a time of the fortunately, unfortunately, this is a time of the pandemic where the need for our software is much higher. So we're doing very well. We booked a very strong year, looking at a very strong year ahead of us. So things have been good for us.
Now, Druva is, of course, a SaaS company which is in the business of data protection, particularly when it comes to clouds. You have several Fortune 500 companies. Tell me something, you must be one of those who are winners of the lockdown. As work from home becomes the new normal, have you got more
Right.
clients? Have you got more business? Because everything, even more than ever, is going to be on the cloud.
Absolutely right. I think the almost 2 years of digital transformation happened in 2 months. I think people were trying to digitally transform their workforce, their core IT infrastructure, and sort of looking at cloud more aggressively. And in sort of both the areas, I think work from home, we have two sides of business. One is for end users and endpoints to be protected while people are working from home, and second is for more infrastructure. I think both sides of business, a need for a software sort of emerged even stronger in the market. So we had much better traction for work from home software called Druva and Sync, and then most of the people looking at cloud felt the need for deploying the product for infrastructure as well. So we saw some very large customers coming on board. I think we have an announcement going on in a couple of days around a very large U.S. federal agency, which is you start to deploy a software across 60,000 end users almost overnight to go against COVID-19. So we've seen good results into our business, and hope to see even more coming forward. This is not a great time for industry, but for Druva, it's a good time.
But Jaspreet, according to the last public fact sheet that we all have access to, your number of customers was disclosed at 4,000. Your number of daily backups had been disclosed at 4.2 million. Is it still that, or has it really gone up? 10% of your clients were also Fortune 500 companies. Is this how things still stand?
I think we've seen a surge of numbers, a number of daily backups. We aggregated a lot of data. Number of daily backups have sort of getting close to that 8 to 10 million range now. They've doubled in the last sort of, I would say, 6 months or so. We've seen a big surge in our uptick in our software. The number of overall customers, I don't have official stats right now, but I think they are closer to, obviously a few over 4,000. We are also, historically has been, we had a cohort of very small SMB customers, which we've been constantly churning or sort of not strategically focused on, while they focus on mid-sized to large enterprise customers. Hence, sort of the number of customers hasn't fluctuated a lot, given we're adding on top and not focusing on the bottom. But I think yes, we're adding a lot of good-sized, large enterprise customers, almost a few Fortune 500 customers almost every quarter, uh, as well as a big focus on mid market as the
But then,
entire
Jaspreet,
industry.
if your business is doubled, if your business, Jaspreet, if your business is doubled, with you now having number of daily backups closer to 10 million, the last disclosed figure was 4.2 million pre-COVID. Um, how difficult has it been to keep pace with that? Have you had to hire more people? Have you needed more money? Are you also going to go in for a fundraise?
It's the beauty of cloud. We're not too dependent upon, adding a lot of manpower to handle a lot of usage. I think usage is a good leading indicator for revenue. As the usage goes up, your revenue goes up as a leading, as a following factor for it. So we are seeing a uptick in revenue as the usage goes up. We are fortunate to have a great balance sheet as we go through this COVID, scenario. We raised a large round last year. The business is not very hungry for cash. We run and operate on a public cloud, so there's no fixed cost to business. We get revenue, we pay the bills. So I would say I think we are well capitalized right now. There may be an equity event, down the line as we look at public markets or further private markets. But right now we're very well funded, and we're just heads down executing to our pace. And we haven't added a lot of people as well. We just steady pace of growth across people and use of capital.
One of your board members is, of course, Shailendra Singh, the managing director of Sequoia Capital. After getting a massive testament for Indian entrepreneurship, getting checks for $1.3 billion for 2 growth funds, Shailendra Singh has also written a blog where he's made it pretty clear that more than ever, unit economics, can no longer be optional. It has to be mandatory. A road to profitability has to be laid out. Jaspreet, my question to you is, if you're dreaming of tapping the public markets, are you already profitable? Your revenues have obviously gone up, so you're saying you're well capitalized. Are you profitable?
I think a road to profitability has to be clear, and unit economics has to be very, very clear. I think so first of all, congrats to Sharendra. Just as I was texting him last night, chatting with him, I think the road to profitability has to be clear. So, which means that you must have a clear path identified to understand how you're going to get there. At the same time, you must improve every year your cost of, your cost of revenue. So, for a SaaS business, the most critical metric is the revenue payback. Right? How soon can a customer or a set of customers can pay back the revenue through the investments you've made in sales and marketing. I think we have constantly moved the number to become a freestanding, and a high growth public company. There are multiple factors into it. Efficiency is definitely the most important one. Besides that, predictability is also important. You must make sure you're predictable as a business, not fluctuate too much as you sort of optimize your path to profitability and your cost. I think we are on the right track for all those efforts and areas. Your gross margins are important as well. And so is your revenue growth. So I think all these factors do play an important role. And we are definitely on the right track to consider all of these. We are outlining a path to profitability, aren't profitable yet,
Okay.
but we have a path to profitability laid out to the board, which is very clear and consistent with what we've done.
When you want to tap the public markets, how soon or how far is that event? You are seeing in the United States at least a tug of war between the bulls and the bears. Back home on the Lal Street, you now have clear-cut guidelines for tech companies, for startups. First of all, have you singled out the geography? And then what kind of a timeline?
So the timeline depends at this point more on the market. Then, even though the market seems exceptionally, good for a certain set of companies, and especially the SaaS companies are enjoying even a higher multiplier than we ever thought. The market still seems a little volatile from the lens we look at it, given the demand for the economy and the GDP growth and the market growth doesn't sort of correlate very, very well. So we're gonna in the camp of sort of wait and watch how the market performs through the year. From a revenue scale, from a predictability, from all those metrics, I think by the end of the year we would have a much better shape and handle over our own business. How the market shape up, how the board reacts to it, how we time it, all depends. 24 months seems like a reasonable window for us to understand what the next steps are.
Jaspreet, you are in the business of data, cloud, providing protection. You see a surge in business. Now more than ever, do the servers have to be safer because we're in work from home? We're at least embracing that in many, many more corporations. With that comes a lot of responsibility. I'm sure a lot of attempts at breach as well. And these days, there's all this talk also on data sovereignty, national interest coming first. How are you dealing with all of this?
I think these are all very, very important trends for data. Traditionally, backup data, which is what we deal with majority of time, used to be a graveyard for data. You just do a backup one, then you forget about it. And now the interest in data from security, from legal, from risk, from compliance team has grown multifold in the last several years, right? So we are focused on in these trends. First of all, you mentioned very important trend around the government's trying to design and who owns the data as a government or citizens, which is I believe very important. So we are acting on a model where even though you're getting a public cloud, level of features, which are parity, level of features which work across the board, but your data is still local to the countries you operate in through a localized approach to storing data through AWS, which is a core cloud provider. So I think we are even more focused on these trends. And actually, this has been a big benefit to us. Given the way we store data, the way we process data is actually more beneficial to customers to sort of come back and inspect, come back and mine. And for example, we offer a full text search to our data. So customers can actually come back and look at the core trends and do interesting stuff like forensics or compliance against it. So we've been a beneficiary of these trends, and we think there'll be more of these in the future, and we must focus upon it to make sure we go deep.
And what about this entire talk which is taking place, how every country should use its own infrastructure? Mike Pompeo today, for example, has talked about the Chinese threat in technology. India has taken a totally different stance as well of banning apps. I know this is not traditionally your business apps and all of that, but it leads towards that, right? Where data might be stored, how it is protected, the infrastructure, the equipment, the software that is all used. What's it going to mean for a company like Druva? When every country wants to go inward, every enterprise may be forced to look at its own national borders.
Yes, so I think there'll be some increase in trend in government expecting you to be more open with your policies, more open with adhering to the local laws, right? We've been very, very conservative in how many countries we operate in. We have handful of 7 to 8 countries which we pretty much make our revenue on, and 3 of them contribute to about 95% of our revenue. So we've been very, very conservative on how many countries we operate in, and yes, these are important trends for anyone to address to. Public cloud does help in this area because public cloud, the whole idea of public cloud for us is not technology. It's a business narrative that I must get the same quality of service, the same features across the globe at the same price point with the local laws being adhered to. So the way our software is delivered in India and US may look extremely similar, but underlying we have to use the local paradigms of storing, operating, and processing data, which may adhere to laws. And we are in a way doing that and opening up policies for the right agencies or governments to sort of introspect. For example, 2 years ago, we were the first one to get federal certification called FedRAMP, right? Which requires a special level of controls on your data, which will be okay for federal agencies to come and store data with you, right? And similarly, we have data protection laws of Germany and UK adhered to now, and we are going one by one to make sure we are open. And we are, there is a sentiment against the Chinese government given the lack of openness, and I wouldn't comment upon that. That's something, something different and must be dealt with, and we are conscious and making sure we are proactive about it.